My father purchased a 3-bedroom home for, I believe, about $40,000 in a place called Canoga Park. We grew up on a street called Haynes Street, just off of Kittredge, right next to Pierce College. This was a beautiful, beautiful little neighborhood, a great place to grow up. I can remember my friends, and, well, the world just seemed very new. In our house, my sister and I were lucky to have our own bedrooms. Traveling down the hallway, just off the kitchen, just off the living room. If you went straight down the hallway, all the way, you'd hit my sister's room. If you veered off to the right at the end of the hallway, just before my sister's room, you'd come to my room, where we had our respective beds and toys, and Roberta had the trappings of a little girl, and I had Hot Wheels and G.I. Joes and all the trappings of my boyhood. One night I woke up and I realized that something was off, something was different. And so I went into the hallway, and there in the door jamb, in between my sister's room and my room, was my sister sitting down in the hallway. She had a beautiful blanket that my mother had macrame'd slung over her. Lifting the blanket, she invited me to sit down, her baby brother. You know, I can't remember what we were talking about. I can remember the sounds of our whispers. I remember we were talking quietly because it must have been around midnight or thereabouts, and we didn't want to make noise in the house. And once again, I can hear our little whispers. We were probably talking for about 15, 20 minutes maybe, and with no fanfare, with no introduction, with no sound, with no warning, a full adult-sized skeleton walked out of my room, walked down the hallway about 7 feet past my sister and I, turned back towards us, bent down, and screamed at us. Ah! Roberta and I, shocked, out of our little minds, we began screaming. Ah! We jetted and ran down the hallway, turned left, ran through the living room, ran screaming into our parents' room, leaping into the air and landing on our parents. There's a ghost! There's a ghost! My poor parents. I remember my father calming us down. I remember my mother and father both going into the hallway and looking around to guarantee us that there was nothing there. And certainly the skeleton that had appeared to us was not there, was not found. It took them a couple hours, but we ended up going back to our bedrooms and going to sleep. As the years went by, my sister and I, from time to time, when talking on the phone, my sister would say to me, or I'd say to her, "Did it really happen?" Yes, it really happened. And it happened to her and I. And it was so fresh and so true that every time we question it, we're there to corroborate each other's story. We know that it happened. One interesting side note on all of this, I have a recollection that was refined in the ensuing years, and that was that when the skeleton leaned over and screamed, its eyes lit up simultaneously, as if it was on kind of a rheostat, a dimming setting of some kind, or switch. I remember looking into the skeleton's eyes and seeing what I could identify as a filament inside of a bulb. So even though this was not a mechanical device, this was not a puppet, this was not a bunraku, this was a metaphysical being frightening little children. But I will never forget that looking into its eyes, I understood that the eyes were made of light bulbs that were igniting. Interesting, very interesting. We'll be right back. Here's the second part of this story, and to me, the most chilling aspect. So, many years go by, many years go by, maybe 25, 30, and I've had a tough relationship end, and I drive my car back to my old neighborhood from childhood. I'm not looking for anything. I know that I won't find any answers there, but I'm looking maybe for more sweet times or memories, something. But I drive my old car back to the neighborhood. I drive my car back to the old house. The old house now has fallen into desuetude. There's a wagon wheel up against the garage. There's a gross-looking fence painted yellow. And there's a boat stored in the front yard. And what was my little home from my childhood, a lot of it is gone, but the hulk of it is still there. As I'm getting out of the car, a large man comes out of the front door of my old house. I figure that's the man that bought the house from my father. And so I take my driver's license out and I hold up my driver's license to the man. I said, "My name is Don Lanning. My father sold you this house." He says, "Oh, I remember your dad." I said, "How's the neighborhood?" And we started to chit-chat about the neighborhood, and about this, that, and also the house. At a certain point, I said, "Is there any way, would it be possible for me to come in to the house and look around? I haven't been in there since I was 15 or 16, and I'd love to look around." He says, "No, I don't think so." I said, "Well, I understand, no problem." He says, "But I'll give you a beer." So he goes back to the house, brings himself a beer and me a beer, and we continue our conversation. After a few minutes, a car drives down Haynes Street. He looks at the car. He says to me, "Oh, there's my wife." He opens the gate to let her in, and he invites me in to stand on the driveway where I had spent many of my childhood years. I let the car go in first, and then I walk up behind. As the lady gets out of the car, this no doubt is his wife. He says, "Honey, this is Don Lanning. He grew up in the house." The lady looks at me right in the eyes, walks right up to me, and she says, "Do you know about the ghost in the back room?" I said, "Have you seen him?" She said, "No, but I know he's there." At that moment, I held up my arm covered in goose pimples. She held up her arm covered in goose pimples, and we held each other's arms side by side and looked at each other. She was horrified. She couldn't believe that I knew what she was talking about. I couldn't believe that she was corroborating a story that was now maybe 30 years old. She had related to me that she knew that it was a male and that it was a young male. Even though she had never seen him, she had felt temperature changes. She had felt some level of communication that she wasn't interested in talking to me about. Otherwise, how would she know that it was a young male? Needless to say, just devastating. So, with that confirmation, I got in my car, couldn't wait to get my sister on the phone and tell her, "Hey, the people that moved in after us, they know about the ghost." Happy Halloween, everybody. If you have a ghost story, if something has happened, not like this necessarily, but anything metaphysical or otherworldly, please put it in our comments below. And most importantly, happy Halloween. Bye-bye.